Greetings from the Cosmic Horrors. The stars are right once again. The great old ones allows the top of for 30-plus minutes. H.P. Lovecraft, the horror writer, is a genre unto himself. I am your cosmic host, Mark Griffin, executive of the Lovecraft estate on Yaga. Joined in by two from the material world, David Guffey, a professor at Mispatawk University, and Richard Wilson. He was curious about all these strange shadows. For today's episode, our guests are Tim Mendees and Roy Poyton. Did I say all his names right? Did I butcher them too well?
Rob Poyton.
Rob. Roy.
Take two.
Yes. Yes. But anyway, they do an orchidaceous podcast called Strange Shadows. Yeah. I feel like I've met you two before somewhere.
Yeah,
where we see each other.
They're vaguely familiar to me.
Yeah, you seem quite familiar. I mean, it seems, I don't know, 7 days ago or something, a weird vision I had, I think.
Yeah, something like that. We were on y'all's podcast, I think, Strange Shadows.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
And I got to listen to it over the weekend. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Thanks. Yeah, it was a great chat.
But it just happened. And so I thought we should make a crossover, say like part one, we should have like, the murderer was like, like someone was murdered. This episode, we revealed who it was.
It was Tim Mendees in the library with the fish.
With the radish.
With the radish. Yeah.
Maybe it was a car.
Yeah, man. Just to let you know, we are 10 minutes away from Auburn.
Oh, excellent.
Auburn, Kentucky. So I have to say.
There we go. It's a swerve. It's a swerve. Yeah.
How's that? First off, explain who exactly is Clark Ashton Smith.
Well, he was one of the big three of the Weird Tales writers. So we've got Lovecraft and Robert E. Howard, and Smith was the third, I suppose the third leg of the tripod, if we can put it that way. And they all, obviously there was actually a Smith circle, and Lovecraft became part of the Smith circle as much as the Lovecraft circle existed as a thing itself. And the three of them carried out a huge correspondence over their sort of writing careers. Luckily, a lot of those letters survive. But Smith was, what would you say, Tim? Is it kind of a combination of the two in a way, isn't he?
Yeah, I would say so, because you've got this sort of the cosmic element, but then you've also got the more adventurous sort of blood and thunder kind of stuff of Two Gun Bob. But you've also got, because obviously Clark Ashton Smith came from a poetic background. He started off in San Francisco as part of that whole sort of George Sterling poetry sort of circle. So you've got that as well. You've got that sort of poetic influence in there, which it just makes some really interesting stories. And I think, you'd put him in the center. He kind of balances the two out.
I found a quote, I think y'all said in your show, where he said, Clark Ashton Smith is regarded as the heart of weird fiction. HPL is the brain and Robert E. Howard is the gut.
Nice. Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And he befriended George Sterling, and I guess he became almost like a mentor to Clark Ashton Smith. And he was had kind of like an art colony of artists, and he was the uncrowned king of Bohemia and in San Francisco. And I did find his poem, The Wine of Wizardry, The Wine of Wizardry, and that spurred Smith to poetry. And have y'all read that one?
I think so.
Yeah.
I can see a lot of influence in that poem. And I did notice that in that poem, it mentions the word cyclopean.
Nice. There we go.
I think we did see it at least once. We just finished covering the first volume of his collected stories. And I think there was at least one cyclopean in that volume.
Yeah,
I think
there was,
because we said at the time we can imagine Lovecraft reading it, because they sent their stories back on the boards. And I think you said you imagine Lovecraft going, yes, yes,
punching the air. Yeah, there was definitely, because when I went through the notes when we did our wrap-up show the other week, when we went through them, I'd circled cyclopean. So.
This seems like quite a favorite word of Lovecraft's, and it, Smith did use it from time to time. And he had a chance to meet Jack London, Ambrose Bierce, but he turned it down because he felt he's not worthy, and that just seems like such a
missed opportunity.
Yeah, missed opportunity.
Yeah.
That's like Lovecraft and Dunsany, though, right? Because I think
Yeah.
It
Lovecraft
is.
went to
Yeah.
see him speak, and he was too shy to speak to him, or the same feeling, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a shame.
Couldn't be like a
Yeah.
fanboy, just like shake his hand, says like I love your stuff or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess he had what you said the other day, Rob. Probably had a nerdgasm, and which took him out the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when did y'all first two discover Clark Ashton Smith?
I think I came to Robert E. Howard first. My dad brought home a Conan paperback, it's sort of mid-70s. I guess it was one of the Sphere, and it was the Frazetta cover, Conan the Barbarian cover. And through that, I got into Lovecraft because Lovecraft's name got mentioned a lot on the book jackets. And I think I found a Lovecraft book in the local library. And from there, you see that Smith is mentioned as well in some of the introductions to the. So I just happened to find some of the paperbacks. I think that was a time where every town in the UK had a second-hand bookshop, just like a little treasure trove. And you go to the back and there's all these fantasy and sci-fi with all the amazing covers and artwork at the time. So I think that's probably where I first picked up Smith was through those paperbacks. Panther, I think the Panther paperbacks.
Yeah, it was pretty much exactly the same for me. I got into him through Lovecraft because I got into Lovecraft through Algernon Blackwood, and I think it was a Reader's Digest, sort of like Tales of the Supernatural sort of thing, and I was like, oh well, I like this kind of stuff, and then it, like Rob says, this was actually a market. We had a book stall on our Saturday market in Macclesfield, and it was I think it was an old crisp box or something, and it had all the old paperbacks in, and half of them were falling apart. And I remember it was one of the Panther Clark Ashton Smith ones I picked up. I think it may have been Lost Worlds 1, which I've since bought again, but I seem to remember it was held together with sticky tape, And I got it home and I didn't understand half the language in it because I was quite young at the time. So I was there with my Oxford English dictionary, Yeah, great stuff.
We still are.
Yeah, we are, yeah.
I was going to ask, did y'all click with the stories immediately, or did you have to struggle with them?
I was pretty much well. The first one I read, I think it was Genius Loci and Other Tales, and that story is about a place that has a certain atmosphere and influence. And at the time I was reading it, I was on holiday with my parents in what you describe as very sort of rundown English seaside mudflats. So this whole place was like desolate mudflats. I suppose now you think it was like Innsmouth or something, So reading that story in that place, it really sort of resonated. I can't remember having too many problems with the language, but then that was probably, I think, those sort of tales were some of his less fantastic ones. So I think the language was a bit toned down. Certainly later on in some of the other stories, then, yeah, like Tim said, we're looking at the dictionary every sort of few lines.
I get the dictionary handy when it comes to him. So why did you just decide to start a podcast about him back in May of 28th, 2022?
Well, sorry, Tim, do you want
to? No, I was going to say it basically came as a spin-off of the Innsmouth Book Club podcast, which Rob had been doing for a couple of years, and I joined the year before. So we got talking about, like, cause we both have a big love of Clark Ashton Smith, and I think it started because we were talking about Sarthogua. Things usually start happening when me and Rob start talking about Sarthogua and toads and things like this, And he basically said to me, "Would you think it's a good idea?" Because we basically have both of the same mindset that Smith doesn't get the sort of love that Lovecraft does. He's, even though his stuff is very popular to those who know, it's not as widely known as people like Lovecraft or Robert E. Howard or even Robert Bloch. So it's a case of, it'd be nice to try and get it out to the masses, to a degree. And I think it was you that had discovered the books were going from, wasn't it, Rob?
Yeah, yeah. They were just released. I don't know if they released about that time, but I certainly became aware of them. So this is the 5-volume collection by Nightshade Press. I think it's Nightshade
Yeah,
Press.
it's Nightshade, yeah.
Yeah, and they collected all of Smith's weird fiction and made a lot of effort to track down the original manuscripts. So these are the original stories without any editing from Farnsworth Wright or whatever. And they put them in these 5 volumes in the order in which Smith wrote them. So we just felt that was too good an opportunity to miss, because that's all our groundwork done. You know, we just buy these 5 volumes and we just go through story by story. There was one other podcast a few years back called The Double Shadow, which I followed, and I think they did about a dozen or so episodes, and then that sort of stopped. Aside from that, I've never seen any other Clark Ashton Smith dedicated podcast. So I thought it was something. Well, we both thought it was something that was needed.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Double Shadow's the only other one I've ever found as well. You named it the podcast after one of his stories. Why'd y'all pick that one?
Just trying to find a catchy name, really. I mean, The Double Shadow is a great name. I thought we could go for The Abominations of Yondo, but we'd get fed up with having to spell that every time. I mean, it's a little bit like, I mean, the stories are so full of potential band names and podcast names and album names. You know, it's almost like open the page and stick a pin in. But yeah, we thought Strange Shadows sounded neat.
Yeah.
What's a favorite story that you have of Clark Ashton Smith? You know, I guess what's the story you would recommend for somebody who wants to start off reading him?
I'd probably go with the one that really got me into his work, which would be The Tale of Satan Prazeros. Because, I mean, if you come at that from a sort of sword and sorcery point of view or a cosmic horror point of view, it just works, because it is a brilliant sort of proto fantasy story. You know, I mean, you can see the influence from that story going all the way through people like Fritz Leiber, all the way up to modern epic fantasy. There's bits of that in there, you know, them sort of rogue tropes, but also you've got that really good cosmic horror of the Toad God, you know, who came from Saturn, and his formless spawn. I mean, it's a great monster. And there's the atmosphere in it just works, whether you're reading that as horror or as sword and sorcery. So for me, that'd probably be the pick.
Nice.
I'd say from another slightly angle, if people are coming from more of a horror and almost science fiction angle, things like the Vaults of Yovombis or The Dweller in the Gulf, the Mars stories, which have some really great horror elements in as well. And they're perhaps a little more accessible. I might be misremembering them, but I can't remember the language being quite so baroque in some of those stories. I mean, there's certainly language there and an atmosphere, of course. But it's often a complaint with Lovecraft. I see sometimes people say, "Oh, I tried reading Lovecraft, I couldn't get into it," and think, "Well, don't try Smith then." You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other one, if you were going from a purely horror or Lovecraft, actually, if you were going to go for the purely Lovecraftian, I'd probably say Return of the Sorcerer, which also had a adaptation in Night Gallery. So, I mean, that's there if you want to, you know, if people don't want to read, you can go and check it out on the TV. But I think that is probably the most traditionally Lovecraftian that he did. So, yeah.
Vincent Price and Bill Bixby in it.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with that.
It's brilliant.
Dr. Fives meets the Hulk.
Yeah. Now there's an interesting mashup.
Oh, I'm a big fan of Dr. Fives. I'm glad that's interesting.
Oh, yeah,
Brilliant.
great films. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. We covered that on the Innsmouth Book Club podcast. Abominable Dr. Fives.
Yeah, we need to do the return. We need to do the.
We do.
Well.
Yeah.
We should do that.
Yeah.
You've been reviewing Smith's stories. Do you plan on doing his poetry in time, like The Hashes Eater?
we'll probably cover that at some point. We'll cover the stories, and then, or what we might do, we do sort of bonus episodes now and again. But for the bonus episodes so far, we've been looking at the letters between Smith and Lovecraft and Derleth. But it would be nice to look at some of the poetry as well, because again, some of the stories are sort of prose poems, really.
Put your teeth in, Poyton.
I can say orchidaceous, but I can't say prose poems.
Will y'all be reviewing the E.F. Hoffman Price rewrites, the Dawn of Discord and the House of Monosaurs? I can't say that word. Monosaurus.
I've not seen those yet, so
I haven't.
That would be something to look at.
They were Price got a hold of the original, scripts for them, and he rewrote them and submitted them and got them published, as his own stories. And I think the originals are lost. And I was just kind of curious of how different are they, from what, Smith would have written.
That's really interesting. I'd like to look at those at some point because there's another screenplay. I think it's actually a play that he wrote, isn't it? The Dead Will Cuckold You.
Oh yes.
We definitely do intend to cover that at some point. So yeah, I'd definitely like to look at those because that would be interesting to see whether it's been kind of de-smithed. Whether some of the more poetic, flowery language is still there, Yeah,
but the language is not there like like his other stories.
Right.
And, I don't know if you read anything about E. Hoffman Price, but he's never been one of my favorite writers. I think he's a fascinating figure, but I've never really been much of a fan of his stories.
Yeah. And one good thing we've had with doing both podcasts is discovering, new to us authors. Obviously, everyone knows the immediate Lovecraft circle, and then your Donald Wandrys and your Belknap Longs and everything else. But as we go through, we find there's more and more. Weird Tales was going for several years, right? And how many issues and how many stories per issue? So I still get the feeling we're scraping the surface in some respect.
Yeah, well, I found that because recently we did a live launch for Lovecraftiana magazine, and we were looking at the first ever issue of Weird Tales. And I was looking through the contents list because I managed to find a PDF of it. And yeah, I knew about 4 out of the 25 stories in there, the authors of. The rest of them, it was kind of like, I've never heard of this guy, never heard of this guy. But yeah, it's just a wealth of stuff, isn't it? I'd love to, if I had the time, I'd love to be able to go through them issue by issue. But I doubt I'd be able to do it.
That'd be another podcast. There's a podcast idea for anyone out there who's 6 years.
Yeah, God, yeah.
There are a lot of obscure authors that appear in there, and and that everybody talks about Lovecraft and Smith and Howard, but there are several other people who wrote that as well through the decades it was in business.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are kind of forgotten. Some maybe deserve to be forgotten, and others, maybe like those gems, that you kind of wonder, it's like, why did nobody talk about this one?
Yeah. Well, it was nice to see that Henry Kuttner story done on the recent Cabinet of Curiosities.
Yeah.
Because he was one of that circle who deserves more attention. And of course, great to see the Michael Shea story, the autopsy, done as well.
Yeah. Those are two of my favorite stories from that program.
Same. I think that for me, they were the standouts. Yeah. With those adaptations. Yeah.
I've not read the autopsy, so I don't know how faithful it was, but Graveyard Rats was fairly faithful. I think they kept true to the spirit of the story. They didn't go on wild tangents like they did Pickman's model.
Mm. Yeah, it was similar with the autopsy. It's sort of kept pretty much to the story, pretty faithful. Obviously, they fleshed out characters and all the rest of it, but yeah, the less said about Dreams of the Witch House, the better.
So disappointing.
Rewrote that thing from the ground up and just kept the title over. Yeah, you should have just called this something else.
Just today, I saw that a new game has been released called Dreams in the Witch House, and it's like a third person looking in, but you have puzzles to solve and explore the island that this house is on, and I think it's pretty faithful to the novel from what I was looking at, but I haven't played it yet. Obviously, it just came out a week or so ago. I'd love to get a closer look at it.
Oh, right. I'll keep an eye out for that. Yeah.
Yeah, same. Yeah,
On Steam,
definitely.
I think so.
Ah,
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
we need to do that. We actually do. It's only like $10, so
Oh, wow.
all right. Okay, I've actually got some credit in my Steam wallet. I'm going to go on there when we finish this interview.
Steam wallet. Is that some Victorian goth thing like steampunk? A Steam wallet. Is it hydraulically open?
Yeah. You have to put little tiny pieces of coal into a little mouth for it to.
I can just see that.
Yeah.
A Lovecraft podcast. Let's talk about Lovecraft. Would you say that they may have been the best friends that never met?
I think so. I think it's interesting reading the letters. I think the very first one that Lovecraft wrote to Smith, because it was Lovecraft who started it, was sort of "Dear Mr. Smith," and I enjoyed your story very much. Yours very sincerely, all that kind of stuff. Oh, thank you, Mr. Lovecraft. And you get a few pages on, and it's "Dear HPL, I write from the vaults of the innermost, nethermost caverns of hell." You know?
Yeah.
And it's they seem to have this really great sort of relationship or friendship. I've not seen a crossword in the letters, whereas Lovecraft and Howard often disagreed on things. I mean, they didn't. They kind of argued, I suppose, in each put their point of view forward, you know. But I don't think I've seen any of that in the Smith and Lovecraft letters. They seem very agreeable.
Yeah.
Interesting that that most of the people in Lovecraft's circle started writing to him, and he's the opposite. He started writing to Smith.
Yeah.
And he was the fanboy, writing to to the person he liked.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why he almost got pulled into the Smith circle. Say people say the Lovecraft circle, but Smith kind of had his own circle. I suppose the two sort of merged together, didn't they? Really?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, because obviously you had Smith and Loveman and all these guys. Because obviously HPL and Loveman started correspondence as well, didn't they? And so there was that direct crossover of the two friendship groups, I guess you'd call it. Because obviously, Lovecraft introduced Smith to Derleth and Two Gun Bob, and there we go. And then along came little Bobby Block. One of my favorite things out of the letters, just a random aside here, was Robert Block when he went to meet. He was still a really young guy, and August Derleth was like, "Yeah, come up to the house and meet me." And apparently, Derleth opened the door in a velvet smoking jacket, even though he didn't smoke. I just thought that's the best meeting ever, isn't it?
Class, isn't it?
First impression.
For some reason I can see him wearing that. I see that picture of him.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. You can just see him, almost like Noel Coward kind of thing. Come in, dear chap.
Oh god, that's hilarious.
Yeah, and Lovecraft introduced him to weird fiction. He's the one who got him, kind of like encouraged him to write weird fiction.
Yeah.
And
it was partly Lovecraft and it was partly Smith's. Well, opinions vary, but nowadays we'd say his girlfriend or his mistress, Genevieve Sully, who Smith was apparently complaining that he was broke, and she said to him, "Well, start writing and making some money then." So I think between the two, that's what encouraged him to write. He always struck me as, I mean, obviously he was an extremely talented man, but he always seemed, I don't know if he was a reluctant artist or writer, but he seemed perhaps as though he needed that little push. Maybe it was a confidence thing, perhaps.
Yeah, you saw that quite a bit with the letters with August Derleth, especially towards the end of Smith's life, when Derleth was like, "Please, just write something." It's just like, because Smith is all like, "Oh, I'm skint, everything's crap," and he's just like, "But people are asking me for your stories. Just write something, please. Just write something."
Yeah, and Weird Tales broke the rule and published poetry. They published 51 of Clark Ashton Smith's poems. So they did that, and they also he did illustrations. And I'm sure you've seen the illustrations for the Lurking Fear that he did for
Yeah.
Lovecraft, and,
Yeah.
and how sometimes they say they look awfully phallic, And then you also,
Well,
I'm
I
sorry,
mean, Smith was the sauciest of the three writers. I mean, obviously,
aye.
Bob Howard's had lots of heaving bosoms and stuff like that, but quite often in a lot of the Smith stories, there's an underlying sort of current of erotica, I would say, and some of the language
Yes.
points to that, isn't it?
A little bit of poetic rumpy pumpy. Yeah.
True. Yeah.
and then or then he contributed to the mythos with his Dosagua. I don't know if he contributed to it or Lovecraft just took it from him,
Well, Lovecraft's Sartoglia was printed first.
Yeah.
Because although Smith invented him was it Satambrazeros? Was that the first Sartoglia story? I think.
Yeah.
That wasn't actually published until Lovecraft's is it The Mound?
Yeah.
Had already been published. So Lovecraft used Sartoglia in The Mound, which was published first. So people thought that Lovecraft invented Sartoglia, but it was actually from. And Lovecraft did change it a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He did change it a little bit, but it was interesting because he loved Satamper Zero so much that he went back to Smith going, "Oh, I love it. I'm going to use it. That's brilliant." And Smith was like, "Yeah, go for it." And then, because of quirks of publishing, Lovecraft got in there first, so he kind of But this part of their whole sandbox they created, I guess. Here's my thing. Use it. Go for it.
And I guess he did The City of Singing Flame, which seemed to be a story about like Smith dreaming like Lovecraft coming to visit him. I kind of got that sense.
I think in both authors there's a strong element of themselves in a lot of the stories. Not in every case, but quite often the character is a cipher. So I'm thinking like Randolph Carter is a sort of Lovecraft as a hero, and we see that quite a lot. There's quite a few Smith stories about struggling poets who dream they could throw off the shackles of the mundane world and not have to worry about money anymore in a state of pecuniary depletion.
Oh, there we go. Oh, he got it in. He got it in. Well done. Bravo. Yeah.
Were you just waiting to use that for this episode, or just
had it ready to go?
Yeah,
I've always got that. That's right on the hip. That one. Once a day.
I'm going to have to stick fulgurant or purpureal in there now, aren't I? Just to keep it up.
And after Lovecraft died, Clark regretted never meeting him, and they didn't even spoke on phone, which I find really hard to believe.
So sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I suppose now you think nothing of hopping on I mean, though Lovecraft travelled a lot. I suppose he never got across to California, but he certainly went down to Florida and those kind of places. Which is again, Lovecraft has the reputation of being the hermit and being scared to go out and meet people, but he was the most widely travelled out of the three.
Yeah.
And it's a shame they couldn't have met up in the middle somewhere or something,
Yeah, I think the farthest Lovecraft ever traveled was New Orleans. He got there.
So,
He was supposed to going to meet Robert E. Howard, but it didn't work out, and so that's how he ended up meeting E. Hoffman Price.
Right.
And that led to the key of the Silver Gate.
I'd love if anybody ever invents time travel, I'd love to go back and give Lovecraft, Smith, Long, the rest of them, right, and give them Zoom.
Yeah.
Because could you imagine, like you've seen the letters, right? Lovecraft's big like essays that he would send through the post. Can you imagine them over Zoom? They'd be on it. Oh, it'd be great. It'd be hilarious. 6 hours Zoom conversations on YouTube, man. It'd be brilliant.
He would have found his calling then.
Yeah.
Another big influence on Smith was Edgar Allan Poe. And L. Sprang de Camp said, nobody since Poe has so loved a well-rotten corpse.
Nice.
Yeah, the word charnel pops up with regularity.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Yeah, and there's always a sort of, I don't know how I can put this delicately, necrophiliac undercurrents. Yeah.
I don't know if it's delicate, but it's definitely well put.
Yeah. Necrophiliac undercurrents. That's my next band name.
There you go.
There you go.
We should start a service, a band name service.
There you go, a branding service, for bands.
Yeah, damn right. Yeah.
Yes. All you need to do is just go to Clark Ashton Smith for your next band name.
Seriously, you could just go through one of his stories and pick out an entire album's worth of song titles.
Yeah.
It's like, Orchidaceous. There we go. There's one.
But he did seem to feature necromancers a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, there's lots of implications in those stories. So it does seem, I guess that is something from the Poe, perhaps. I mean, Lovecraft obviously also had a big Poe influence, but I don't think it manifested itself so much. Maybe in some of the earlier stories, like In the Vault or something like that. But
most of his
sorry?
Most of his poetry is very stilted, Lovecraft's. One guy from Yawgop is, if I was going to recommend any poem, that'd be that one. That's definitely one of his best works.
Yeah.
And there are a few, like what they call kind of like his, horror, dark stories and all that. And if you're into nature poetry, his nature poems are not bad. But then when you talk like his amateur journalism, his groups and all that, he's just getting really too specific to the groups and the meetings that you really have no idea what he's even talking about. I'm sure the people who read this going like, oh, I know he's that Lovecraft, and other people are going, I don't get it. It's like,
was that like kind of in jokes sort of thing within the group sort of stuff?
Yeah, a lot of insider stuff. And I guess about time when Robert E. Howard died and Lovecraft died and his parents, he just basically kind of essentially stopped writing.
Yeah. It sounds like he had a really tough time on sort of health problems, money problems, and it must have been a big shock losing those two, I guess. And I suppose the frustration of being such a talented writer and yet you're still having to go out and I don't know, sort of dig beetroot or something to earn your living. He really had a lot of quite manual jobs and stuff. So. And he was, pretty much living in a shack at the time, right? Or in the cabin. So.
It's one difference about him. He was a lot more prolific than Lovecraft. He definitely wrote a lot more stories.
Yeah.
It was almost like he burnt himself out because it's like over a relatively short space of time, he pumped out a great body of work. And then it was kind of like, it was interesting because it's in the introduction to the volume, the first volume, he actually said that that's kind of how his entire creative career went. It's like he decided poetry, he's going to bang out X amount of poems, and then he got to a point, he was like, right, I'm done with that, move on to the next thing. So he went into the fiction writing, did the same thing, and then moved into the sculpting.
Yes.
So it's almost like the well went dry, so he'd dig a hole somewhere else.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there's this interesting career when you do the stone carvings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how much of that is still around as well. You occasionally read about some going up for sale, obviously a certain amount, but I'm not sure what his output was and how many of those are still in existence.
I think there was a documentary, Emperor of Dreams, that had like a few in there, but those are the ones I know of, like, that still exist. And it would be interesting to see how many of them are around, and also like his paintings that he did as well.
Yeah.
And he died August 14th, 1961. He lived longer than all the other members of the Trinity, so he lived it's like there are a lot of people still alive today who knew him, as opposed to like Lovecraft or Howard, that all of them have passed away.
Yeah.
But yet his stories have not resonated as like with Howard and Lovecraft. And so what do you think has been like the kind of the hurdle that is? It can't be his language, because Lovecraft had the same problem.
Sure, I think there's an element of that. Well, again, I suppose it depends what audience are coming into it. But then Lovecraft just seems to get more and more popular with each successive generation. So um, I think it's more, as we've discussed before, Robert E. Howard has got Conan, Lovecraft has got Cthulhu and Innsmouth, Clark Ashton Smith has got, I mean, it was the Tampa Zeros was in 2 stories, and that's pretty much it. I don't think he had a focal theme or character. I mean, when you look at his stories, they're quite diverse in terms of setting. You've got 4 or 5. You've got prehistoric sort of Hyperborea. You've got Zothique in the future. You've got Mars. You know, it's quite disparate. So I think that lack of a Smithian universe perhaps is maybe one reason.
Yeah, I'd also I'd also say possibly because a lot of his better known stories are kind of lumped in with the Cthulhu mythos as large, and therefore gets kind of overshadowed by Lovecraft, if you know what I mean. I mean, like we just discussed about the Sarthoggua, you know, how many people who aren't that familiar with it think that was actually a Lovecraft creation and not a Smith creation.
Right.
Mhm.
Those are really good points for sure.
There are very few of his works been adapted into the movies, and we talked about that quite a bit in the previous podcast. And so I'm going to do a little plug for y'all's show. If they want to hear that, they need to go to y'all's podcast for that. And but I was curious, are there any like stories of his you think would make a good movie?
Oh, I think, as I mentioned before, the Mars ones would be prime material for, I think, like the Cabinet of Curiosities, you know, 50-minute, 60-minute episodes. I think a lot of his stories would work well for those. Even things like, you know, Murder in the Fourth Dimension, almost Twilight Zone-y sort of feel, a lot of those stories. I've done about a full movie. What do you think, Tim? I can't think of one that would make a full film.
I would love to see a proper 50s style B movie treatment of the immeasurable horror. You know, with flying saucers over Venus and the great big shockathy thing. You know, that'd look brilliant done in that sort of B movie style. You know, I think that'd be great.
With Leslie Nielsen as the
yeah,
commander.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. Yeah.
Forbidden Planet, sort of.
Yeah. You'd have to have lots of theremin on the soundtrack as well, you know.
Yeah.
Well, technology today, they can pull it off. You know, I think they can do it.
Yeah.
Again, I think that points to that thing of Smith not having a character, because you think, oh, well, a Robert E. Howard movie, great. You can make Conan, you can make Cole, you can make Solomon Kane, you can make Bram McMill. They're making a Red Sonja film at the moment, I think. Yeah. Lovecraft, well, you can do the Call of Cthulhu, the Shadow over Innsmouth, you know. Smith, because you haven't got that so much character driven, not that Lovecraft was big on character, but a movie needs character and emotion, doesn't it, really, to work? You can't just run a whole movie on atmosphere. Oh, maybe you can, I don't know.
Yeah.
Have y'all heard the audio drama The Colossus of Elorn that Chris Lackey and Chad Pfeiffer did?
Yes. Yeah.
So,
they covered the story in I think it's called Strange Studies now. I think the show is.
I think they were still doing the Lovecraft literary podcast.
Yeah. We had Chris on the Innsmouth Book Club last year, didn't we? So, and hopefully he's going to be coming down to our Innsmouth Literary Festival convention we're running later this year, because Chris is in the UK, so we're hoping he's going to guest at that for us.
That's the time when Ramsey Campbell's going to be piping in.
Indeed. Yeah. Now, it reminded me earlier, because when you mentioned the sonnet cycle, Lovecraft, Fungi from Yugoth, I was like, just sneakily writing it down in my notebook, because if I get the opportunity, I need to ask Ramsey Campbell about mushrooms from Merseyside. which was a parody he did of Lovecraft's Sonnet Cycle Fungi from Yuggoth. He did Mushrooms from Merseyside about all his stories in the same way. Yeah, and it's really, really funny. I'd love to say, so how much had you been drinking when you read that?
Were you taking mushrooms when you're doing that?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it's brilliant. Oh, yeah, if you've not read it, it's just check it out. It was put in the appendices of the Drugstore Indian re-release of Inhabitants of the Lake. Yeah, it's in the back of that. It's well worth picking up just for that.
Make a note of that. I'm seriously neglectful of Ramsey Campbell. I've read very few of his works. And I guess another influence he had that he doesn't get any attention with due diligence is like the Dungeons and Dragons role-playing games.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
interesting. We had the guy from Appendix N on, didn't we, Rob? Talking about
Jeff,
very much this. Yeah,
Jeff Goad. Yeah, the Appendix N podcast. They cover the Appendix N in the back of the first D&D that listed all the books that were an influence on Gary Gygax. Funnily enough, Smith was left out of that list first time, and then I think he was added in on the reprint. And there's some speculation that apparently, I don't know how true it is, Gary Gygax has got very strong religious views, and it was felt that Smith was a bit too saucy to mention. I don't know how true that is, but that's something Jeff.
Gygax was a Jehovah's Witness, wasn't he?
I'm not sure what his fate was.
I think he was a Jehovah's Witness. They have a lot of restrictions.
Yeah.
I think he was in the outs with that sect for quite a while because of some of his lifestyle.
That sounds about right. Yeah,
so y'all have wrapped up season 1. So how do you do a season for a podcast? What does a season 1 mean for your show?
Well, with this, it's been easy because we've got those 5 volumes. So we thought, well, there's about 20 odd stories in each book. So some of the short stories we double up. We do 2 in one episode. So that gives us about 18, 20 shows. So we thought season 1, volume 1, season 2, volume 2, With the Innsmouth Book Club, we just run through. We don't really run seasons with that as such. So yeah, that's how we structure it.
Yeah. So y'all plan doing a 5-season show with this?
Yeah, I mean, we'll do again all these other little offshoots. You're giving us ideas, It's a poetry season or something. Who knows?
Yeah. Since y'all started doing this podcast, is there anything new you've learned about Clark Ashton Smith before you started?
Oh, a hell of a lot. Yeah. Even not just about his life, because we've looked, obviously, going through the letters and things like this, because we've been doing them, looking at when they're written and the letters around that time, so to try and find out bits and pieces about the stories. But you pick up almost by osmosis all these things about his life and all that kind of stuff, but even more so than that, just stories I'd never even heard of before I picked up these volumes. And some of them have been absolute gold, but they've never really been featured in any collections or anything like that before. So it's just been a gold mine.
Yeah, I'd certainly echo that because, Panther Publications, then I think they're like the Chaosium books.
Yeah.
But a certain amount of those stories are maybe printed once in a fanzine somewhere and then never printed again. But then you also pick up things like his friend, Mrs. Sully, spoke about they went up camping into the mountains, went up walking into the mountains and were camping overnight, and her niece was with her, and they were sitting around the campfire, and Clark Ashton Smith was reading a Lovecraft story to them, and you just think, oh, can you imagine?
Could you imagine that? Eating beans out the can or something, listen to Smith reading Lovecraft. Brilliant, man. Sorry, carry on.
And all right, and there's particular Lovecraft. Lovecraft's usually kind of like known for his Britishisms over here in America. And so is there anything about Lovecraft you strike as American, when you read his stuff, since you are British?
The temperance.
Well, yeah, that's not very British, is it?
No, exactly. If he'd have been British around that time, he'd have been right on the source. I'll tell you.
I think one thing I do know, one place I did notice that was the rats in the walls. I did a bit of an essay on that at one time for Innsmouth News, and looking at the place names. And obviously, you appreciate at the time we didn't have Google Earth, and it was very difficult to find things out. And sometimes you can tell when it's someone who isn't from a country when they put certain place names in certain places and it doesn't quite fit. You know, I'm sure there's an equivalent in the States. Like San Francisco wouldn't be in New York kind of area because the name doesn't fit with that side of the country. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't think of him as particularly American or British or anything really. I think he's got quite a unique voice in that sense. Whereas Bob Howard's American, right? You know.
Straight out. But, you know, he used a lot of the British spelling, you know, for his stories. So, you know, that always kind of stands out for American audiences. Now, I did notice when they were printed in Weird Tales originally, they would change the spelling over to an the American style. Except for the Color Out of Space, they kept the original title for that one.
Yeah.
And, I got a pop quiz for y'all.
Oh.
Y'all would always talk about what would make a good band name. I thought I would quiz y'all what would be a real band name or what is fake. And,
Which one of these?
Yes.
Which is it?
Yes.
Wait, don't tell me.
I would see if I can pronounce these right. Vol Midadrift. Vol Midadrift.
Vermithadreth, you mean?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, no, because he actually Smith made that as a play on words. Vormy's address with a lisp, because that's where the Vormis live. So it was Vormithadreth. Yeah, there you go.
All right.
Sorry.
No, not to pronounce it, but is it a real band or is it?
I think that's a real band.
Yeah,
you're correct. And Cyclopean, Psych as Psychlopean.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
I haven't seen that one, but that doesn't mean it isn't real.
Yeah. I'm going to say no.
I'm going to say yes.
Okay, well, it is a real band. They didn't take their name from Clark Asher Smith, but they did do a lot of works based on his stuff.
Ah, right. I'll look that up.
And Zolquathia with a Z.
Oh.
No.
No, that doesn't ring a bell either.
That's a real band.
Oh.
Is it? Nice.
Necrokashu.
Bless you.
Oh, that's brilliant. Oh.
I'm going to say yes now because I was wrong.
I'm going to say no. Yeah.
It's a real band, but they didn't take their name from Clark Asher Smith. They just do his stories based on it. Hubert.
Hubert.
Yeah.
Like
Not like the video game. Hubert.
Sorry.
No, I don't think. No.
No.
They're also a real band, but also based on Clark Asher Smith's work.
These are trick questions. You're trying to.
Yeah, they've all been real. You haven't actually given us a fake one yet. This is the thing, you're psyching us out here, man.
You know, I was just surprised the ones I found. I just had like Mahaboj, Burge.
Well, that's. I'm sure Smith used that word. So
yeah, he did. Marabouche. Yeah, we've singled that out.
Mahabolgian. It's like giant-like, isn't it? I think something like that. I want to say yes then because I recognise that word.
Same.
It is a real band, but they're more based from Dante, who took it.
Yes.
Yes. The Seven Geeses.
Oh, that's got to be, isn't it? And I hope it's.
I hope it is, but I don't think it is.
It was the name of an album by the band Woofin.
Yeah.
Sunless Abyss.
Sunless Abyss.
Yes.
That sounds like a.
No, yes, they are real. Yeah.
They are a real band, but I can't find a Clark Ashton Smith using that name. But they did do songs that I think Clark Ashton Smith would have loved.
I know the Sunless Abyss. Yeah.
Oren.
Sorry, what was that again?
O-R-N-E. Oren.
That actually rings a bell. I'm sure I've seen that somewhere. Yeah, I'm going to say yeah.
I'll say no, just to be contrary.
Yeah. It's a Finnish band. It's named after like a department in France and also a river. They have one song called Return of the Sorcerer. Yes.
Oh, of course. The River
previous,
yeah.
On the podcast of y'all, we talk about Corpus Delicti, so I'll let them have to listen to that one.
Yeah.
Answer that
great French goth band from the 80s. Yeah.
Yes. Potty Franz.
Potty Franz.
That's one of ours.
That's one of ours.
Potty Franz. So that's actually in formation, that band.
That band is big and all that.
We're getting the personnel together.
Yeah.
It's difficult finding singers who can sing the words and pronounce them.
That's why you need lots of modulation on the voice, isn't it? We sound like a Dalek or something,
All right, that one's not a real band. Y'all just happened to mention it. I decided to throw it in there just to cause attention.
It should be, shouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely should be.
Yeah. Once we've done the Men in Tweed, we'll do Poddy Franz. That'll be yeah.
Hash's Eternity.
Oh, Hash's Eternity. That has a ring of truth to it.
That has a ring of truth.
Very similitude.
Yeah.
I could find no band with that name of all that, even though it should be.
Really?
That's a good one.
And a final one, Archives of the Moon.
Oh, that sounds good. Again, there should be.
Yeah, that does ring a bell, but whether that was just in my warped imagination or not, I don't know. But I'm going to say yeah.
I couldn't find a band by that name, but Lynn Carter did write a story with that title.
Wow.
That's probably why it rings a bell. Yeah.
And as y'all like to explore words, I also like to explore words on this podcast. And I decided, instead of picking the words from Clark Ashton Smith, I started to pick the words that y'all like to utter.
Oh, here we go. Rumpy Bumpy. Yeah. Yeah.
Here to educate on what that word means.
Over to you, Tim.
Is this a family show?
Well, we're all
It'll get bleeped out if it's too bad.
Yeah. Rumpy Pumpy is the act of intercourse between two consenting parties, preferably under a gibbous moon on a lawn with a glass of gin.
And one last word that y'all mentioned or phrase, a video nasty.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that was in the late 70s when VHS really started taking off, and there was a whole stream of films like I Spit on Your Grave, Driller Killer, Evil Dead. And over here, they were actually banned. So the only way you could see them, there was always someone who knew someone who had a sort of dodgy copy. And being school kids at the time, we normally pole around someone's house during the lunch hour and watch Evil Dead or something,
Yep.
But they were officially banned, and they got the name Video Nasties. I haven't seen most of them. I mean, Driller Killer was
Spencer.
Yeah,
as far, well, at least they reference it as far as the first part of it in terms of that kind of the setting for it is we're in that period.
Right.
Yeah, I think it was actually one of the newspapers, one of the tabloids, probably the Sun, who coined the phrase "video nasties" because it was Mary Whitehouse, wasn't it? The scourge of the scourge of creativity, Mary Whitehouse, and her bunch of pearl clutching campaigners who tried to get everything from Rainbow Doctor Who to Driller Killer and everything else banned, you know.
I guess it is the equivalent of what you had over there with the rock albums and the lyrics and the sort of satanic
panic, yeah.
Was persecuted.
I guess also you had on the comic books burned in the 1950s. Adaptation of the Comic Code Authority.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've exhausted everything with y'all. I want to thank y'all for coming on. It was enjoyable.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for inviting us.
Absolutely.
And just a few more notes. David, you've been seeing other podcasts, haven't you?
I have been.
So what's this one called?
You had an exclusivity contract.
No, there's no NDAs. There's no whatever non-compete clause. A friend of mine and I have started a podcast called The Pattern is Full. And even though it's using that title, The Pattern is Full, it is not about the Top Gun and Tom Cruise. It's more of a conspiracy theories. And my buddy that I work with, he's eat up with conspiracy theories. He loves them. He's always sending me TikToks or videos or links to something. And so I'm sort of the skeptic. And he's the one that's running.
You're the Scully.
Yeah, I'm the Scully to his Mulder. Anyway, it's out there. It's somewhere in the ether. So
yeah, well, I got a subject that y'all can discuss.
Okay.
When Barack Obama went to Mars in the 1980s,
I did not hear that.
That's brand new.
Yeah, that's when the time travelers came down and told us, that there was a Martian teleportation program. And Obama was one of the first people who was involved with that in the 1980s.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So,
wait, how old was he in the 80s that he was on Mars?
Oh, he was a teenager. He didn't know. Actually, be playing his 20s, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes, anyway, we got an email from Alan from Louisville. Wanted to share along what he said. I guess your Lovecraft podcast has finally got to me. I was at Barnes & Noble the other day, and usually I avoid because it's like an alcoholic wandering to a bar. I saw a hardback collection of Lovecraft short stories, something like 25 of them. There was even a blurb on the book from Stephen King saying that Lovecraft hasn't surpassed for horror. Okay. The book was $12, so I bought it. I read the first story called Cthulhu's. Is that correct? How you say that? Wow, the word is popular enough to be in spell check to recognize it. Fun. Not particularly scary, of course. I'm from a different time than the late 1920s when it was written. If it certainly is written better than most pulp tales of the day that I've read, including Howard. So I'm working my way through it, and maybe, who knows me, I know what you guys are talking about. So there you go. David and Richard, I see the stars are no longer right. We must cease all discussion until they align again next month. 30 Plus Minutes of H.P. Lovecraft is sponsored by the Hashes Eternity Dispensary. This podcast is created in association with LovecraftPod.com and Logan Speck, the Fiction Group, with the help of the Lone County Public Library and the Great Old Ones. Special thanks to Katie Tyson for being the keeper of the singing flame, and Joshua Duke for his table moving service. Until we meet again, may avoid Princess Cthulhu, who is confessed to being the murderer.
Oh, man. She'd love that.